When the sun has set on a Friday night, bringing peace into your home, families will gather all around singing Shabbat Shalom. Everybody sing Shalom. Shalom. A gift from God to put a smile upon your face. He's got the whole world in his hands, so obey his commands and you will know peace. Shalom. Shalom. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I'm so glad to be here with you. Shabbat Shalom, my friends. I'm so glad to be here with you in this medium that we're able to use the televisions to connect for Shabbat and to be together. It is so hot outside today. It is about 95 degrees right now. And so it's really much better to be indoors with air conditioning and comfort, and we're connected to each other virtually. So let's begin by lighting the Shabbat candles. And I've got this first candle that I'm going to light, if you can see. I'll put it really close. And then I've got this second candle that I'm going to light. And once again, I'll hold it up so you can see as I put it on. Hold on. Oops. There we go. As you can see, it's on. And please join me in making the blessing. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom, my friends. Shalom Aleichem is a beautiful prayer that is traditionally said in synagogue, but also sometimes people will sing it at the Shabbat dinner table. And it's a prayer that longs for peace, and not only peace in the world, which we need, but peace in our own hearts and souls. Sometimes we feel not at peace, we feel anxious, or we feel afraid. And Shalom Aleichem is about shalom. Ooh, let me turn that up a little bit. I'm going to put on my capo. This is a capo, and it makes my guitar, you see it? I clip it on. It makes my guitar shorter string, and therefore I can sing a little bit higher. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh, Baruch Please join me in saying the Shema together. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. Love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Let's make a Misha Beirach now for anybody who's in need of healing. Are any of you in need of healing? Do you have any children or grandchildren or loved ones or friends or roommates that are in need of healing, or staff that you know? Let's make a blessing for all. Misha Beirach Avotenu Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov v'imotenu Sarv Karachel v'Leah hu yivarech v'rapeh kol hacholim b'keilah shalanu Los Angeles Jewish Home. May the one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, send your blessing of healing to all members of our community that are in need of healing, all of our residents that are in need of healing and their loved ones, all of our staff that is in need of healing and their loved ones, all of our rehab patients that are in need of healing and their loved ones, all of our volunteers and supporters that are in need of healing and their loved ones, that they should all have refuah shlema, complete recovery of body and of spirit, along with all those among the people of Israel that are struggling for wholeness. And we say, Amen. In a few moments, I'm going to talk about our Torah portion, which is called Naso. Naso is the second parsha, the second Torah portion of the book of Numbers. Remember the 5 books of the Torah: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. It's the 4th book, and we're already in the second Torah portion from that book. In Hebrew, Breshit, Shmot, Vayikra, Bamidbar, and Devarim. So we're in the second Torah portion. And among other things, which I'm going to talk about in a few minutes, is the source of the what we call the Birkat HaKohanim, the priestly blessing that has those iconic words that are so meaningful. And I want to look at them for a moment with you. May God bless you and keep you is very powerful. because not only is it a blessing, but this sense that you're being watched over and protected, like your parents might have done when you were little, hopefully. The second is almost more powerful to me. It's Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka. May God's light illuminate upon you. And Ya'er is just such a beautiful word because it suggests illumination. And since we're made in God's image, I always picture God's light radiating inside of each of you. And then the last one is really about peace and part of what we talked about before, Shalom Aleichem, a blessing of peace. Yevarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. Yaher Adonai panav elecha v'yikuneka. Yisa Adonai panav elecha ve'ashem lecha. Shalom, shalom. May God bless you and keep you. May God's light shine upon you and radiate in your heart. May God gaze upon you and your loved ones and give you the blessing of shalom, of peace. Ken Yiratzon, may it be God's will. Amen. And for all who've passed away in our community, or for people who are marking a yahrzeit, the anniversary of the death of a loved one, or it's still in the first year, we say Kaddish. Yikadav yikadash shemei Rabbah. Ve'amad yivrach yirtei ve'amlich malchutei b'chayechonu v'yomechonu v'chayedecho beit Yisrael. V'agalau v'zman kari v'yimru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'lalmei almaya. Yibarach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'tadar v'taleh v'talal shmei dekudasha b'richu. Le'elan min kol birchata v'shirata. Tush b'chata v'nechemata. Damiran be'alma v'yimru amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav hu yaseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved. And we say, Amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Shalom, Ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. So as you may remember, the Kabbalists, the Jewish mystics who connected with God in a very deep and unique way, they imagined that Shabbat was like a bride on a wedding night. And that's how you get this custom where everyone would open the door and rise like you would do if a bride were walking into the room. And so this beautiful hymn of Lecha Dodi came about to capture that image of Shabbat having the possibility of making one feel like they would at their own wedding. Lecha Dodi. Shabbat shalom u'mevorach. Yiramayam, 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 Umelo. I'm going to put the guitar down for a minute as we get ready to say Kiddush. The candles may announce that Shabbat has begun, but it's the Kiddush that lets us know that Shabbat is going to be holy and special time. So I hope that you all have a wonderful, holy Shabbat. Don't worry, we're not done yet, but I just wanted to share that with you. Yom HaShishi v'yachulu hashamayim b'aretz v'chol tzva'am v'yichal Elohim b'yom hashvi'i melachto asher asa v'yishbot b'yom hashvi mekomoto asher asa v'yvarech Elohim et yom hashvi v'yikadesh oto ki bo shavad mekomoto asher bara Elohim lasot Savrin Rabbanan v'Rabotai l'chaim Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Barei peri hagafen Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'rasavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'avahu v'rason hinchilanu zikaron lemahaseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila lemikra'ei kodesh zecher l'tziyat mitzrayim kivanu v'acharta ve'otanu kidashta Mikol hamim ve'shabbat kodshecha ve'ahava uvratzon inchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashabbat. Amen. L'chaim. And of course, we know that you're going to have your wine and your grape juice. Sorry to stop something. You're going to have your wine and grape juice with your dinner, as will I. But this is a time that we can all be together to make the blessing. Now, what I wanted to talk with you about is this week's Torah portion. I mentioned earlier that the Kohanic blessing, the Yavarecha Adonai v'Yishmerecha, that comes from this week's Torah portion, which is noteworthy. But there was actually something else I wanted to focus on. It's very interesting that in the Torah portion, Naso, we learn there's some weird stuff in here having to do with when a woman is accused of adultery, but I don't feel like going down that path because it's a little archaic. But I just want you to know that it's in there. But what I find particularly interesting is that they had this option, and it was totally optional for any Jewish person who wanted to do this, that you could take a Nazirite vow to become a Nazir. And a Nazirite was someone who, it's like someone who, you know what I think about? I have friends who will go on these retreats by themselves just to kind of clear their head. I have other friends who will do a cleanse where they don't eat for a few weeks and they just drink kind of liquids and fruit juices and things like that, and they cleanse out their body. And the Nazirite vows remind me a little bit of that kind of thinking where you want to kind of take your whole system and stop and do things very differently for a little while. And so once you decided, hey, I want to make the Nazirite vow, and I don't know if it was permanent or not. I think you could retract it ultimately, but once you made that, I should have done homework on that. I have to double check that. But once you made the Nazirite vow, then certain restrictions were upon you, including not cutting your hair. And the other very famous one is that they would abstain from any alcohol, hard alcohol or wine, no alcohol at all for the Nazirite. And I want to ruminate on that with you today because I think it raises a very, very interesting question. And it has to do with abstinence. There are religions where, no consumption of alcohol. And it'd be really interesting to know what the rabbis would have said or their ancient contemporaries who are not of our tribe, what they would have said about current intoxicating substances, because there's so many drugs around right now. It's a very controversial subject. What should be legal? What should be illegal? Marijuana. I remember this is a funny story. I was teaching a ninth grade class And I was talking about this topic of alcohol. And what I said to my students was, I said, this is when I was in synagogue in New York. I said, there are religions that hold up as its ideal abstinence, meaning it would be better to not have one drop of alcohol your whole life than to have it sometimes, for example. And yet in Judaism, we don't have that as the ideal normally. And the Nazirite vow is sort of an exception to the rule. The more common rule is that you would have one Kiddush cup of wine a week, right? You're not limited to one, but you are encouraged to have one. Now, obviously, they didn't know from alcoholism and that kind of thing. Naturally, if you have a problem or a challenge with addiction, you wouldn't wreck that by having alcohol. But in terms of just the view of the tradition, absent an understanding of modern day addiction and alcoholism, the thinking was you don't have to abstain, you're allowed to enjoy. Now, there are some religions that feel the same way about sexuality, that feel sexuality should only be for procreation. The whole purpose of sexuality is to have children, not for pleasure. And Judaism looks differently at sexuality as well, that pleasure, in other words, is the body and its joy seen as something suspicious or dangerous or even evil, as it is in some religions? Or what is the body seen as something that was given to us as a gift from God, and the body is allowed to enjoy what you might call bodily pleasures? And Judaism encourages sexuality. Of course, it sees it in the framework of marriage, but still it sees it from the point of view of joy and love, and not just for procreation at all. It's a mitzvah for a husband and wife to please each other, not just to have babies. And so similarly with alcohol, now, if you consider that there's about one holiday a month, at least, that means that there are a good 5 times a month where you would drink by traditional command, actually more than that, because there's a tradition of having a cup of Kiddush wine at Saturday lunch. So you would have Friday night, Saturday lunch, Friday night, Saturday. So that's 8 a month. And then if you add in a holiday, that would be 9. That's a significant amount of significant frequency, not quantity, but frequency. So then you might say, well, isn't that excess? Well, that's an interesting question. You don't have to finish the cup. And you'll note that the rabbis are talking about one. I've never seen a Jewish text that said, actually have 3 cups of wine, go to town. The only exception, of course, is Passover. That's once a year. And I think that Passover's contrast with Shabbat and holidays makes a statement in of itself, which is, once a year, you're going to have a feast and eat for about 5 hours. And so you're going to drink a ton on Passover, but the norm would be 1 cup. So I would say that the key term here is moderation. So I was telling you that I was teaching this to my 9th graders, and I was talking about moderation. And one of my students said, well, so if you're supposed to drink in moderation, then Rabbi, if I go to a party and have some pot, some marijuana on a Friday night, is that fine too? Because I'm not having a lot, I'm just having it once a week or something like that. And I thought, oy vey, how do I answer this question? If I answer it one way, they're going to think I'm an alien from Mars and I don't understand their experience. And I'll alienate them as the adult that they never tell anything to. And if I answer another way, it would sound permissive. So I kind of wiggled my way out of it because in those days, marijuana was absolutely legal. And so I brought up a different Jewish text, which is Dina Malchuta Dina, the law of the land is the law. And we would never encourage something illegal. And since marijuana is, and actually it's still federally illegal in my understanding, that Judaism would never take a position of, go ahead, even though it's against the law, because we would never want people to go against the law. But the question that was on that young man's mind is interesting to me, because I think he understood that what Judaism is saying is moderation, but be very, very careful of excess, because we know what can happen in drunkenness. Some terrible things. You have spousal abuse. You have, accidental shootings. I mean, many things happen when people are intoxicated, and not to mention drunk driving accidents where thousands of people have suffered from that. So I think it's poignant that 3,500 years ago, when Torah emerged onto the scene, that our ancestors had the foresight to just raise the question of moderation by contrasting with this idea of the Nazarite. So the Nazir, the Nazarite, is saying total abstinence. I know this is not the norm. I know it's not what Judaism is asking me, but I believe, says the Nazarite, that there's an even higher level where you don't enjoy the bodily experience the way that a regular person does. And it'd be very interesting to interview such a person who's living that way. I don't think that the Nazarite practice exists really anymore. There's got to be some Jew somewhere in the world who's resurrecting it. But generally, I don't think it does. But a very, very interesting thing to ponder. Next time you see me, if you have an opinion on this subject, Judaism's view on alcohol, moderation, excess, please share it with me or converse with your friends about it. I think it's a interesting topic. All right. Well, we are almost out of time. And so I'd like to conclude our time together with an Adon Olam. I think I'll do a different one than the one we usually do. Oh, wait, before I do that, we should make motzi. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. B'teavon, a little bit in advance. I know you're going to eat soon. Adon Olam Asher malach b'terem kol yetzir nivra le'ed nasa b'chefso kol azay melech shemo nikra ve'acharei kichlot hakol levado imloch nora ve'hu haya ve'hu hoveh ve'hu yeh betifara ve'hu echad ve'ein sheni להמשילה, להכבירה, בלי ראשית, בלי תכלית, ולא העוז והמזרע, והוא אלי, וחי גואלי, וצורכת לי, בעת סהרה, והוא ניסי, ומנוס לי, מנת כוסי, ביום אקרא בידו, אפקיד רוחי, בעת אישן, בעירה, בעיר רוחי, גביעתי, אדוני לי, ואלוהי. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. A blessing upon each of your heads. I want to say Shabbat Shalom to each of you from my heart to yours. See you soon. Shabbat Shalom.
When the sun has set on a Friday night, bringing peace into your home, families will gather all around singing Shabbat Shalom. Everybody sing Shalom, 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 Shalom.